When the movie recap starts, a message will be displayed to the person who was issued a Paragon ticket. This ticket is given to those who have lived a perfect life. They have never made a mistake in their lives. Those who dedicate their lives to saving the lives of others are also entitled to this ticket. If a person dies before their time, they will also receive this Paragon ticket. In the first part, we saw that Kim was given a Paragon ticket. The Guardians were taking Rim for the Paragon ticket. Meanwhile, Guardiana says we don't have to pass the 7 trials. We will go straight to the King of God. For Yamraj, this means that there were certain rules in the afterlife. How can they go straight to God if they leave the 7 trials? The Guardians of the 7 processes attack these Guardians. Meanwhile, Guardiana goes into his flashback. He sees in his past life that he was a warrior of the kingdom. But Guardian B wakes up Guardian A. He wakes up and starts fighting the warriors. During this war there was an earthquake. A castle appears from the ground and it was from God the King. When they see that, they stop fighting and bow before him. Mrs. Guardian C also asks Rim to bow down. The Guardians abandon their weapons and bow before Yamraj. Yamraj was angry with A's Guardian. The reason was that after death, Rim wandered the earth to take revenge. Guardiana thought about sending Rim back to earth. He brought him here when he gave him the Paragon ticket. Yamraj got furious with Guardiana because of all this. Yamraj's 2 lawyers were also furious with Rim. He believes that no one ended Rim voluntarily. That was an accident. For this reason, his soul should be burned. He is unable to be reborn. Yamraj's lawyers argue against the Guardian. Guardiana will not lose and asks Yamraj to give them a chance. And we prove how Rim died. Yamraj says, I will give you a chance, but if you prove wrong, what will you do? Guardiana says, we will accept our defeat if that happens. You can take our powers back. The Guardians are also shocked, but what can they do when their boss says this? They are preparing to give their abilities. Yamraj says another condition and says there is an old man on the ground. The time of his death has passed, but he is alive thanks to God, protecting him on earth. I sent many people to take the old man's life, but the God who always takes care of the old man causes my attempts to always fail. My condition is if you come back with the old man's life within 49 days, I'll give you another chance, as Rim's investigation will also take 49 days. During this time you will fulfill my task and remember that the God protecting the old man lives in the old playground. The playground is in the old man's house and your task is so simple. Just go to the old man's house and finish off the old man while defeating God. Bring his soul here. You have only 49 days and the Guardians agree with Yamraj. The scene cuts to the ground and Guardians B and C are shown. They came to Earth to take the old man's life. The child was playing with his uncle and it was God who lived in the old man's house. He was saving an old man from death. This God appears to be an ordinary man, but he may also have been an artist. That's why he had pictures decorate the walls of the old man's house. When Mrs. Guardian C sees the pictures, she forgets her task. He still watches the paintings, but the Guardians move to the old man at night to take his soul. Meanwhile, they are looking for the bad luck of the deity. He comes and presses the neck of the Lady Guardian C. Guardian B asks the deity to leave her. She is a little girl and the deity leaves Mrs. Guardian C. He crashes into the closet. There was a fight between Guardian B and the deity. Guardian B can do nothing against the power of that deity. After this fight, the Guardians apologize to the deity. They say, we don't know who you are. Deity says, you don't know who I am. I was also a guardian like you before. King Yamraj has erased your memory. Therefore you do not remember anything, and the deity tells them that this child is the grandson of this old man. It is my duty to save the old man until he grows old, because this child has no one but an old man in this world. In a few days I will admit the boy to school, then you can take his grandfather's life. Then I won't defend you and it makes them understand anyway. Guardiana is shown in the afterlife saying to Yamraj, Rima's soul doesn't have to go through the 7 trials. He should be investigated in relation to the allegations made against him. This is not my idea, but this was your rule. You made these rules and Guardiana says you are now breaking your own rules. Yamraj says hearing this, if he did a mistake you will also get punished. After him, do not think of going to Earth again. Your respawn will also be cancelled. Guardiana was also not wrong because his view was also fine. That Rima's soul wandered the Earth. He continues to hurt people for revenge on Earth. There should be one case on Rome. Guardiana takes Rim into the boat with him. Rim asks many questions from Guardian A. He says, you told me there is something to stop my death. Won't you tell me what was the thing that stopped my death? When Guardiana hears this, he starts tying up Rima. Rim asks again and says that, if you don't tell me, how can I accept that you are the one to save or punish me? Here Guardiana is thinking who I gave the receipt to. He pressed a button and the lamppost grew larger and Rim was bound. Guardiana throws him into the water while bending. The fish have human faces around them. Rim screams for help after falling into the water. Guardian is pulling him up and Guardians B and C have already arrived. They say the Guardians and all that happened on Earth. They say that the deity took the pattern slip from us. It is said that the deity said that if the old man's grandson goes to school, we can take life. His grandson will go to school after 40 days. When Guardian A hears this, he says, I don't want these excuses. Now, whenever you come to me, take the old man's soul with you. You must end the tone of the deity that is on Earth. Guardians B and C move to the ground again. Ranger A sees a huge fish in the water. An old man's house is shown on the ground and some people are shown inside. They warn the old man. It seems that the old man took a loan from them. The deity was watching them and the truth was that the deity could not harm people. The deity joins hands in front of them and asks for some time. They disagreed and in anger push this deity. The deity falls in a dirty place. Due to falling on a dirty place, the deity lost its powers. Guardians B and C know this and accept this deity. They say to the deity, if you give us back our memories, we will protect the child. A man is holding a baby in an old man's house. He warned him, but Guardian B comes in human form. He asks them to leave the child, but they did not agree. The Lady Guardian made the deity agree and the deity accepted their agreement. He says, I am ready for your deal, but save the child first. Later, Guardian B fights them and saves the child. The world of the afterlife is shown. Guardian A asked Rim to listen carefully. I will not tell you the secret of your death. I will tell you everything when you are presented before Yamraj. My story is also like yours. My brother broke up with me because of his greed. I can't tell you another story. He throws Rim into the water again and says that. Meanwhile, a huge fish arrives and starts pulling their boat. On the other hand, Guardian B was asking the deity for the truth about his life. I don't know the truth about my life. The deity begins to tell the story of Guardian B. You were a strong and brave fighter and you are still the same. Your enemies run after seeing you. You know, everyone called you a wildcat because you wore a wildcat skin around your neck. Guardian B is happy to hear this. It shows up in the afterlife world. That Guardian A reached the hell of laziness with Rim. Guardian A tells Rim that this is a place where people who have wasted their lives are punished. You may also be in this category. You also studied with your brother Kim's money. You should be punished, but I will save you from here, so remember this kindness. I will also give you rebirth. Hearing this, Rim says I don't want to go back to Earth again. Guardians B and C are shown asking the deity why they are trying to save the child. The deity tells them that his mother died and his father took loans from people. That's why he ran away. The child got sick because of it and I lived a block from their house. I couldn't stop after seeing the condition of this child. So I came to this world as a human to protect this child. This child has none but his grandfather, and I'm trying to get that child into a good school. I don't have enough for that. What will happen to his future if I leave this child in this situation? That's why I say you can do away with his grandfather when he gets accepted into the school. The deity tells about the Lady Guardian C and says you were also not less than anyone else. You protected the children during the war. You took care of children whose parents died in the war. You saved the children when the war was on the other side. You are still the same. Guardian A is shown in the afterlife while sitting by a fire. Guardian A tells Rim that I will tell you about your death at the right time. Rim asks, now what are you going to do? Guardian A tells him I will give you rebirth. It means you can return to Earth. Rim tells the Guardians I don't want to go back to Earth. I have told you many times, tell me who you are. What is the reason of my death? As he says this, he leaves and Guardian A tries to stop him. He stops in the distance because there was a deep ditch in front of him and he stops when he sees it. Guardian A tells Rim that my father was also a warrior. He was a capable and kind man. Everyone respects him, and my father took me to war because I learned to ride a horse. He handles the situation very well. Rim hears this and says fine, but I want to know about your brother. He tells him that we defeated the enemies in the war and there was a child in their military camp. He lost his parents in the war, and my father took the child with him. He took him to an orphanage and the story started from there. Guardians B and C are shown seated with the old man's family on the ground. Mrs. Guardian C often helps the child with homework. Guardian B was watching the news with the old man. News reports show army officers carrying Rim's body out of the ground. That was the current news of the day. Guardian A was telling my father that he considered the child in the orphanage to be his son and I didn't like it. I hate the boy for that, but I didn't tell my dad. Days go by and my father trained the boy. The boy who took over my father's training moved forward. Then one day he beat my father. He used to defend himself well. He has become skilled to save himself and always wins. My father gave him this training. My father told me that we must defend ourselves until the enemy attacks. Using my father's techniques, the boy became a great warrior. Guardian and Rim get to the point while telling this story. Guardian draws his sword and Rim asks him why he draws his sword. He says, you wandered the earth like an evil soul. Many monsters will arrive here because of you. Rim was overconfident and says, no monster can hurt me. You know I'm a dangerous soul. These fantasy monsters can't hurt me. Hold this sword back, they can't do anything. Guardian C asks the deity how she met Guardian B on Earth. The deity says that a tiger was about to attack you in the forest. At that time, this wild white cat means Guardian B who saved you. You weren't a girl from his town, so he took you to a safe place, the place where you lived. When he saw that you had secured the children, he sent the obligatory items. The deity told about Guardians B and C. Meanwhile, the people arrive at the old man's house, but Guardian B thinks, why did they get into my story? He ends them all in a rage. Many dinosaurs are shown to Rim in the afterlife world. Guardian tries to save Rim. The earth cracks and a huge dinosaur emerges from it. Guardian and Rima were swallowed by the dinosaur, and now they were in the dinosaur's body. Brawly and Guardian tells Rim that we will now go to the hell of betrayal. Cheaters are punished there. Rim says, I didn't cheat anyone. Nobody cheated on me. If the Colonel and Junior Soldier had known I was alive, they wouldn't have buried me. They're not mean enough to bury me alive, so I'll say they didn't cheat me. When Guardian hears him, he starts telling his story again. He says that after training from my father, the boy became wiser. He was trained and strong. My father brought him in first during the war when he saw his abilities. My father gave him a chance instead of me. The last time I saw my father was when we lost the war. My father died in that war, and I know that the boy who used to be my younger brother is the reason for my father's death. But I couldn't do anything. Later I got my father's place. Rim says after hearing that you had to take revenge on your brother. Guardian is silent about it. The deity is shown on the ground and tells Mrs. Guardian C about his past. Mrs. Guardian C was with Guardian B in a past life. Guardian C's parents were found to have been terminated by Guardian B. Mrs. Guardian C feels bad and does not speak to Guardian B. Guardian B says, why are you doing this to me? That was our past life and it was 1,000 years ago. Guardian C tells Guardian B what happens when it's a past life but you ended my parents. You know, but you didn't tell me. The deity makes Guardian C understand that he will not be angry with Guardian B. He broke up with your parents, but it's his fault. In return, he protected you and the children. He didn't tell you what was in his heart. He was afraid you would hate him. Guardian takes Rim to the Hell of Injustice in the afterlife. According to the lawyers of the Hell of Injustice, Rim roamed the earth as a soul. He should be punished. Guardian says this is bad. Rim was terminated voluntarily. Do you have any proof? Asks the deity. Guardian tells the deity that there was a witness, and he was a junior soldier. The deity says to Guardian A, can you bring a witness to this world of the afterlife? Guardian answers yes after hearing this. The scene cuts to a younger soldier being shown on the ground. He was in a coma state. This case will be further discussed by the witness of the younger soldier. The younger soldier seems to be a dream, but he has reached the world of the afterlife. He gives proof of it. Guardian asks the younger soldier, did you know he was alive when you buried Rim? The soldier remembered the past, and the truth was that the colonel and the junior soldier had seen Rim's hands when they were burying him. They knew Rim was alive. Instead, they bury Rim and the younger soldier lies. He says, I don't know anything about it and I didn't know he was alive. Guardian scolds the younger soldier saying, why are you lying? God comes to this in anger. He says, why are you deciding this when I am here? God makes Rima stand in a box filled with water. Guardian kept asking the younger soldier questions. The young soldier says his last words saying, forgive me. Then it dies when it goes to the ground. This query ends here. Guardian is disappointed and thinks what happened. The scene moves to the ground where the deity and the guardians are shown outside. As they were returning home, some people were coming out of the house. They are shocked to see this. Why do they think they came here? Arriving home, they notice things have been rearranged. They remodeled everything in the house. The old man was badly beaten. The deity will also weaken, and it was found that they had broken the jar in which the deity lived. Therefore, the power of the deity gradually decreased. It is shown in the afterlife world. Guardian failed to prove Rim's innocence. Guardian tells God that living or dying are two different things, but one should not die badly. God considers it good and releases Rima from there. Guardian C is shown on the ground taking the picture as he joins her, but she could not join it, and the deity breathed its last. He also told about the past life of the guardian Mrs. C. He says that the king found out that you saved the children from the war. Then the king's people hold Guardian B and ask him about Guardian C. Where did the enemy country hide the children? Deity says Guardian B asked about you. Even then he didn't say anything about you. The king ordered to leave you among the wolves in the forest. Guardian B asks the deity, did I die because I was bitten by wolves? Divinity says, don't try to see it from another angle. The deity disappears, then Guardian B thinks, and it shows in a flashback, that he was saved from wolves in the forest. He was moving out of the forest. He gets to Guardian C and the other kids. Guardian C was depressed when he saw all this. Meanwhile, Guardian B tells her that he terminated her parents. He was embarrassed and apologizes to Guardian C. Guardian C forgives him as she protected him and the other children for many days. The king arrives and Guardian B asks Guardian C to run away. He prepares to fight the king. The huge twist was that the king was none other than Guardian A. The white cat was none other than Guardian A's brother. He was adopted by his father. There was a scuffle between them. When Guardian A was about to finish him off, someone stabbed him in the back. This was done by the Guardian C. Guardian A finishes her off by stabbing her. Here it is discovered that Guardians B and C were terminated by none other than Guardian A. He later quit on his own. King Yamraj comes and says to the Guardian, I am giving you a chance to be good. If you work for me for 1,000 years, I will give you the place of Guardian. Then you will work for me. In the meantime, if you reincarnate the 4 model souls, I will send you back to Earth. This little girl and your brother you ended will be with you. Yamraj asked to erase the memories of Guardians B and C. Their memories were erased. Didn't they remember who terminated them? He says Guardian A will remember his past. It means you will work with me with 1,000 years of memories. You will regret it all. That will be your punishment. The scene cuts to Guardian A appearing. He told Rim and got into a hell of violence with Rim. The lawyers argued that Rim should be punished because he was teasing people like an evil soul on Earth. He should be punished in the hell of violence. Guardian A says don't punish Rim now because our final judgment remains. This is hell of murder and we will tell all before God about murder. They get to the hell of murder and there were 2 gods. One was the god of murder and the other King Yamraj. It was the king of the gods, and then the colonel is called as a witness. The colonel is shown sleeping on the ground. In a dream, he enters the hell of murder. Everything went in his dream. And Guardian A asks the colonel, did you know Rim was alive when you buried him? If you had saved him then, he would have been alive. Murder Hell also asks him if Guardian A is saying right. The colonel lies and says I don't know anything about it, and Guardian A says something about him. Guardians B and C also saw him. He tells my father that he didn't die in that war and was alive, but I keep it a secret from everyone. I saw in the dead bodies that my father was alive. I didn't try to save him because of my greed. It will give place to my adopted brother if I save him. That's why I didn't save him that day. I realized my mistake when I got home. I moved again to save my father, but by then he had died. This thing still annoys me today. I can save my father at that time, but I couldn't. Guardian A says it's a huge grief and I've been carrying it for 1,000 years. That time gave me grief for 1,000 years. The chance I didn't get that day, you have that chance today. And don't make this mistake like me. You may have buried him by then, so you won't be asked. You may not regret it for the rest of your life if you accept your mistake. The colonel realizes his mistake and agrees that he willingly buried Rim alive and then apologizes to Rim. Rim forgives him. He then disappears from the world of the afterlife. He wakes up from his dream and opens his eyes to the ground. Everyone in the afterlife knows that Rim was innocent. Rim has a chance to be reborn. He salutes Guardian as he leaves. Everything became normal and the problems were solved. Except for the problem means that the soul of the old man has not yet been brought from the world. The old man was happy with his grandson. Warden decides to let this old man grow older. Later we leave after taking this old man's soul. Until then, we will do our job as guardians. Guardian tells the guardians that our task here is complete. Let's go back again. We have to give rebirth to another man and you have to wonder who that man is. Stand at the gate for 3 days. The man was a junior soldier and the guardians move to the man. Guardian stops them and says I want to talk to you. He was telling the guardians something, but they already knew what the guardian would tell them. They don't want to hurt Guardian A anymore. Stops Guardian A. They say let it go and we don't have time to dwell on the past. We don't care. We have our new task, and they leave in a happy mood saying this. An old man is shown on the ground telling the boys about the deity. Rim is again shown in the afterlife world preparing for rebirth. Meanwhile, King Yamraj arrives and says I am giving you a chance. Work for me. Will you work for me? Rim agrees as he had no interest in being reborn. He doesn't want to go back to the world. A flashback scene is shown at the end of the movie. King Yamraj comes before Guardian A's father. He says you were a pious man and I am giving another chance to a wise and kind man like you. Will you work with me while you are king of the gods? He doesn't want to be approved, but when he thinks about Guardian A, he gets approval. He tells Yamraj that I will not do this in my escape, and you have to get me up. King Yamraj agrees with what his father said. She gets him up. It means that the King Yamraj we see is the father of A's guardian. This is where this story recap ends. Thanks for watching the movie recaps.